I am Kiriti Sengupta and I represent Hawakal Publishers Private Limited. Today we have American poet Dustin Pickering, who is not only a poet, he is a very well-known reviewer of poetry. His reviews have been published variously across, across the United States and India as well. And we have recently released Dustin's 14th book of poems. I repeat, we have recently released Dustin's 14th book of poems. It's called Crime of the Extraordinary. So this is the book. It's called Crime of the Extraordinary. It's a collection of Dustin Pickering's, as he prefers to call them, micro poems. Dustin, congratulations and thank you so much for appearing here.
Thank you.
How do you feel about your 14th book of poems?
I'm very pleased. I'm pleased with the production. I'm pleased with the process, and I was especially pleased with the poems. I was surprised since I wrote them all in about a week and a half. And I was just really impressed with the quality that I produced. As I did Salt and Sorrow, that one took about 5 hours to write. This one took about a week and a half to write, and we went through editing with Sanjeev Sethi. Really wonderful process. I was really pleased with everything altogether.
That's really great. For my audience, I'll share a list of Dustin's poetry books. Dustin Pickering, first book of poems, was published back in 2016. The book is called The Daunting Ephemeral, and the book was published by Dustin's Press because, he's the founder of Transcendent Zero Press, which is in Houston, Texas. So the first poetry book was called The Daunting Ephemeral, and it was published back in 2016. The next book, the second book, was The Future of Poetry is Now. The title of the book was The Future of Poetry is Now, Bones Picking at Death's Howl. The next book came from our house, again in 2016, and it was called Salt and Sorrow. It's an extremely popular book of poems in India. The very next book was published by Alien Buddha Press in 2017. The book was called Frenetic No Contest. In 2017, again, a poetry collection titled A Matter of Degrees was published by us, Hawakal Publishers. Later in 2018, we published Dustin again, and the book was called Knows No End. After that, Dustin had a poetry collaboration with Dory Williams. The book was titled Imitations of Love. It was published by Dustin's Press, Transcendent Zero Press. In 2020, Dustin came up with another poetry collection. It was called The Forever Abode. The Forever Abode. Later, in 2021, Hawakal Publishers published Dustin's another book. The book was called The Stone and the Square. In 2021, Dustin released a poetry collection called Only and Again. 2022, he released another poetry book which was called The Ophelia Prophecies. It was published by Venetian Spider Press, Virginia, in 2022. In 2022 again, Dustin had another poetry book. It was a collaboration with Dory Williams titled Pieces, Paces, Prayers, and Poems. It was published by Transcendent Zero Press. So here we are today with Dustin's 14th book of poems, Crime of the Extraordinary. Congratulations once again, Dustin. This
Thank you.
meeting is
For working
going to
with you.
be, yeah, thank you. You're most welcome. And we are extremely proud to have published your 14th book of poems. And I personally believe this is one of your most refined work of poems. This is one of your most refined collection of poems. And we are absolutely happy, delighted to have released it a few days ago. I can see
Mhm.
there are a couple of endorsements, a couple of blurbs that appear in the book. I read one from the front cover. It's by acclaimed international poet Sanjeev Sethi. It says, Pickering makes stylistic and linguistic advances with that will please his readers. So Sethi claims that Dustin Pickering, has made stylistic and linguistic advances that would please his readers. Sethi writes again, his poems look at him and his landscape with a detached sense of being. This is a wonderful, wonderful endorsement. It's a book of with a big heart. It's a book with a big heart that Sanjeev Sethi claims about Dustin Pickering's 14th book. And on the back cover, I can see acclaimed Indian poet Sudeep Sen's not so long, not so brief endorsement. And I'll let readers look at this blurb for a better understanding, because in this blurb we have citations from several poems in this book. So Dustin, I'm getting to the point right away. There are a few poems which I absolutely admire. The first poem, it's on page number 26. Dustin, can you turn to page number 26?
Yes.
The poem is called Being and Becoming One's Self. Being and Becoming Oneself. Could you please read the poem for us?
Being and becoming one's self. My ego crams thoughts from archetypes and memories. Subconscious parallel universe, it seems. My syringe is filled with my blood. The father of the father fixates on my wounds.
Wonderful. So I'll repeat the second and the third line. Subconscious parallel universe, it seems. My syringe is filled with my blood. Now, what exactly is the parallel universe? Would you call your subconscious to be the parallel universe?
I would think that the subconscious or the what Jung called the collective unconscious is a kind of parallel universe. Yes, and it's an entanglement, quantum entanglement. I think, and it's obviously a concept. I have no proof of this, but I think that there's definitely a way that we communicate with alter egos and alter selves through our
Uh-huh.
thoughts. At least I know I can. That the unconscious can kind of whisper things to us we don't quite understand until maybe the future, or maybe even we understand it later on. Looking back, as Kierkegaard said, hindsight is 2020. And so forth. And so I think that that's the case. That maybe there's some sort of thing bigger than us that really knows what's going on and kind of communicates through alter egos.
Mhm. You're right. And what about your syringe?
My syringe. Well, it's not. It's more related to medical syringe, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
not drug addiction. Just to be clear, to clarify that, because I've been through a lot of medical issues and stuff in the past, and so I'm thinking, I'm using that as a metaphor for healing, actually, rather
Okay.
than my syringe is filled with my blood. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a
Yes.
healing metaphor.
And by the way, who is the father of the father?
It's a sort of an archetype I created through the grandfather. It's representative of ancestral memory,
Yeah. Yeah.
roughly. Like I'm referring to memories and archetypes. Like I'm referring to that as a general human thing, not just my personal grandfather, but as a general humanity
Yes.
grandfather.
Right. So it's a nice poem, being and becoming one's self. So we go to page number 34. On page number 34, we have another fascinating poem. It's called Keys to the Gate. Keys to the Gate. Justin, could you please read the poem for us?
Keys to the gate. Death holds me in her arms and kisses me waking back to sleep. When I see the hourglass of promise filled by a desert landscape, my eyes bleed sudden from silence. Once we entered the flesh, there is no turning away.
Wonderful. I'm curious to know, why did you know, call death she?
It's interesting. That was deliberate. I call death she because I think of death as a lover
Mhm.
and as a seductress in a way, like she's calling you in. And so and as a male, I refer as a heteronormative male, I refer to her as a her. And I think, that was because of, a kind of feeling that death is always overarching and seductress, and a seductress mindset kind of impale, and it kind of went on into my consciousness. And so I basically used her as a kind of to give a feeling of this is something without my control. This is an altered persona, and it's
Mhm.
something outside of me and outside of who I am. And so it was like an altered consciousness way.
Right. You know, Dustin, in India, and especially in Hindu tradition, we consider death to be a man because the god of death is called Yamraj.
Mm-hmm.
And
Interesting.
this particular line, when I see the hourglass of promise filled by a desert landscape, my eyes bleed sudden from silence.
Mm-hmm.
This is a wonderful, wonderful line. Hourglass of promise. Like, why would you say that? Hourglass of promise. Because we commonly say that promises are made to be broken. So when you write hourglass of promise, what
Mm-hmm.
exactly you hint at?
Time really hourglass, there's an image, I don't know if it's also in India, we sometimes use time as an hourglass, and
Yes,
it
yeah, we do. Yeah.
flip it over. And so I'm using hourglass of promises. Life has these promises that it has for us, and
Hmm.
so life itself and time are intertwined. And
Yes.
and the desert landscape is like you look upon, and that is kind of like a sense of brokenheartedness. You just see the desert and
Yes.
the sand, and obviously there's a parallel image. So you look upon the desert, and it's impoverished for the human
Hmm.
race. It's like
Hmm.
in terms of there's nothing you can really do with it. So I'm kind of implying that in a lot of ways, life is a sort of disappointment in so many ways, but it's also of promise. There's something you can use the desert to
Right. Right.
your
So
advantage if you know how to
we
if you
move
know what
on to
to do.
page number.
So
Yeah,
there's a little
right.
bit of
I
a
got your
paradox
point.
I present there.
Yeah. We move on to page number 39. The poem is called Immortality. Justin, please read the poem for us.
Okay, immortality. You wait forever for love,
Right.
but to undo what has been done is an act of faith. All that befalls you was
Was,
presupposed by
yes.
the angels of gratitude.
So I want to read the poem for my audience again. You wait
Mhm.
forever for love. You wait forever for love. But to undo what has been done is an act of faith. All that befalls you was presupposed by the angels of gratitude. This is a fascinating poem to say the least. Do you really wait forever for love in personal life, if I may ask, Dustin?
Absolutely. Yeah, romance, it's not my thing. That's why I'm a poet. I mean, I have a lover's heart. I have a
Hmm.
loving heart, and
Hmm.
I had my friend, my recently deceased friend Troy Camplin once wrote, "There's
Hmm.
nothing sadder than a romantic
Right.
without a person to love." So, wait forever for love. It's like you wait on and on, and you go through trials and tribulations. So, yeah, that's definitely my character.
Yeah. So you mentioned the angels of gratitude. Do you really think gratitude plays an important role in modern life?
And people have forgotten gratitude. We're so wrapped up in ourselves. I think we have forgotten, and that's why I bring gratitude into this book because I think it's important to
Yes, of course.
remember that there are things you have that we have not had in the past. But our ancestors, we have this technology. I can talk to you across, continents and the
Ye-
sea and everything. And we didn't have that, as far back as 50, 75 years ago, and so we have a lot of things to be grateful for. And I think people miss that even and especially in times when you're unhappy,
Mhm.
with things. It's good to remember you have things that are worth noting for yourself.
Right. We move on to page number 50, 50. The poem is called Bees. Please read this poem for us, Dustin.
Bees of the body autonomous. My love is a moonbeam. Your eyes are the shining sun. The imago of water merges with man to invite bees into the seeping unknown. Retract the spirit, and we are honey.
This is a wonderful line. This is, this is a beautiful line. The last lines in particular, retract the spirit and we are honey. Could you please reflect on this particular poem?
I had a dream one time that there was I saw God across from I was on a bridge crossing a bridge, and I saw God all the way on
Mhm.
the other side out in the water, and kind of an island persona, and he
Right,
approached me and he put his hands on me from the back, and he was completely made of water. So that's where I get the imago of water. And then I'm referring to when I say the retract the spirit and we are honey. I'm celebrating the physicality of existence, and that's the
right.
main point I'm making is that it's not it's the product of the spirit. That's why it's honey. But we track the spirit and we are honey, so you leave only the honey without the bee. And so I mean it's called bees to put the bees in the center focus of the poem, the idea that the concept of the producer and the produced of life and spirit.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Dustin. So, the last poem for this session is on page number 67, and the poem is called Losing One's Sanity. Losing One's Sanity. Dustin, could you please read the poem for us?
Losing one's sanity, I sabotage the swollen belly of your pregnancy. Only in offering the challenge of chance do remedial fires burn. Single nights are promises of touch. You are not awakened by my slumber. Thought is a circus.
Thought is indeed a circus. That's the
Hmm.
ultimate line of this poem. And this is an amazing, amazing, amazing poem where you write, I sabotage the swollen belly of your pregnancy. Only in offering the challenge of chance do remedial fires burn. Single nights are promises of touch. Single nights are promises of touch. You are not awakened by my slumber. Thought is a circus. How well this poem merged with your mental being, mental well-being, I mean.
Can you ask that again?
Yeah, of course. How well does this poem merge with one's or with your mental well-being?
How does it merge?
Yes.
Um, well, I think poetry and writing poetry is a purge of your, all the heartache and all the things going on in the world. And so writing of this poem, I also think of poetry as a kind of sabotage.
Uh-huh.
I mentioned sabotage your swollen belly, and I'm thinking of Earth as a personification of the planet we live on. And so, sabotaging your pregnant belly, we're all in the pregnant belly of Earth. We're all in a state of becoming. So, I think in terms of my personal well being, writing poetry is essential because it purges me of all the guilt and frustration and things that I see in life that I don't approve of and which I can't control. Bigotry, for instance. I don't like bigots.
Mhm.
I can't help it. And writing about these things in a very abstract style helps me kind of come to terms with the fact that life is so much bigger than me and I don't have control over it.
Right. Dustin, my last question to you for this session would be,
Mhm.
what suggestions would you like to offer to the younger poets, to the aspiring authors? What would you like them to do?
Most importantly, read a lot and don't just stick to your country or your locale. I would say read a lot of international literature. Try to develop, read some of the greats, read some of the lesser known works, and learn to compare and contrast what makes a great author great, and use those tools. Also, developing your own voice. I know a lot of people say these things like you need to develop your own voice or whatever. That actually it takes a lot of work. It's
Right.
not just something that happens. So put in the work, put in the effort, do some reading and make some comparisons of your own. Find out what you enjoy and appreciate in other voices of literature. And also, I think experience life is very important. Like you have to have a broad set of experiences to write about. And a lot of this work is not just me abstracting things out of my head. It's stuff I've lived and felt and come to terms with. So a lot of literature is just that. That's my advice. Travel, get out, do things, take risks, not anything that's life endangering, but just risks like get involved in situations that are in broglios, very confused situations to write about, and things that and study human character and different people, like think about their motivations and what drives them. So just do a study of human character. I think that's very important through yourself too. Introspect. That's my advice.
That's fine. Thank you so much, Dustin, for being here, for reading your poems from your new book. I congratulate once again and wish you all success, all glory for your new book. Fingers crossed. I'm
Thank you.
sure this particular book, Crime of the Extraordinary, will take you places.
Hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.